And with me right now is our good friend Leslie Gabola of Adapt-2-It. And coming up next month, they're going to be celebrating 17 years. Am I right?
17 years, yes, already.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
great.
incredible.
I'm amazed.
You're going to be having a great event, and today you brought along someone who's going to be there, right?
Excuse me, I'm stuttering. I don't usually do that. I did. We are incorporating an alternative health fair in our celebration. So it's going to be the usual fun, food, wine, music. But in addition, we're going to have several people there that offer alternatives to traditional medicine.
Great.
And I brought Dr. Termes on with me today. And I love to bring people on the show with me who I feel are making a really significant difference.
Yeah.
And I have to tell a story. And
first of all, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
And so actually what happened was we had a patient, and he was in a wheelchair, and he was wheelchair bound. And so he decided to do hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which I'll let you discuss and describe. And so he needed to get in the chamber because it's a small chamber, it's round, and then there's a little seat that you have to transfer onto to slide into the unit. And so he was wheelchair bound and couldn't stand up, turn around, and sit down in the chair, so he had to use a Hoyer lift, a lift. And this was a rather large gentleman. And anyway, so we transferred him in, and then he did his treatments. Well, a few weeks later, I was asked to come pick up the lift because he was transferring on his own. And he was able to get up, turn around, sit down. And the really cool thing about it is a couple things. This person had had a stroke, and so they had weakness, and had been sitting in the chair for 7 years. And so they were able to go from that status to walking within a couple 40 hours of treatment.
Yeah, about a month's worth of treatment.
A month worth of treatment.
So we should mention your company is Life Source Wellness Care, and it's about regenerative medicine. Am I right?
Correct, correct.
And I want you to kind of go into that a little bit, what that is, what that entails. And I think one of the things, because before we came in, I was talking with you about it, some of the truths and myths we hear about these type of different things.
Sure. So regenerative medicine basically focuses on the body's innate ability to heal and try to stimulate those healing mechanisms. So there's a variety of different approaches we use. For the hyperbaric oxygen therapy is one of those. Another is using stem cell therapy and PRP and things like that. You hear about that a lot in the news. But what all those treatments are geared towards to stimulate the body towards healing, to encourage it, because it's obviously been blocked for whatever reason, disease process, injury, etc. But what we're trying to do is stimulate and bring back function for the patient, trying to help reestablish their quality of life again. A lot of these folks, for example, the fellow that you were talking about, had been in a wheelchair and hadn't been out of that wheelchair for like 7 years, other than to just go back into bed and being taken care of by his wife. So his quality of life is improving tremendously, and that's what we're geared towards, is helping reestablish quality of life for these people, helping give them pieces of their life back that they haven't had for a while. So using regenerative techniques, we're able to help stimulate and heal up joints that are degenerated. We're able to help stroke patients bounce back and get some neurologic function with some aggressive physical therapy. We're geared towards helping restore them back to their lives that they've lost as a result of their disease or illness or injury.
And how do you figure out what treatment is going to work, if it will work? I mean, everyone's different. At what severity these people are at? How do you go about that?
So everybody comes in for a consultation. We review all their medical records and their diagnosis, and to find out what caused their problem in the first place, to figure out if they're a candidate for treatment, because not everybody is necessarily a candidate for treatment along the way. You have to, it's different patient selection makes a difference in what kind of outcome you're going to have. And so there's a lot of established data that's out there with research for stroke patients, for example, using the hyperbaric chamber. There's scads of literature, despite what traditional medicine has to say. I've got a whole textbook that just focuses just on regenerative aspects of using hyperbaric therapy in cerebral palsy and stroke and traumatic brain injury, et cetera. So there's a lot of data out there. The public's just not aware of it. Traditional medicine doesn't really promote it. It doesn't make anybody a lot of money along the way. And so therefore that's the rub. So what we're doing is we're trying to offer something that patients can't get elsewhere, can't go into a hospital and get. And we use those treatments based on the research that's come out to this point in time in order to help establish what protocol we're going to use with a patient. So we may use a combination of hyperbaric therapy and stem cell therapy for a patient along the way. And this fellow that we were talking about earlier, that was his goal when he had come in, we had talked about doing some stem cell therapy after the hyperbaric therapy, except that he just did so well with the hyperbaric therapy. So I told him, let's table this whole idea of the stem cell therapy for another 2 months. Let's have you do aggressive physical therapy. And if we don't need to do that as a treatment, that's all the better for you.
So when someone goes through one of your treatments, I'm sure it's very different time frames for each. What is the prognosis in months from now, a year from now, whatever it might be?
So we try to get the patients really involved in their treatment because they have to be really dedicated to doing their own physical therapy, like this fellow we were talking about. I made him quit smoking for 3 months before he could come back, before we could do anything along the way. So the patient has to be committed to following through and doing what they need to, and then we have things set up with physical therapy, and we do our treatments that we use, be it the hyperbaric therapy or sometimes it's a matter of tuning somebody up from the inside. Nutritionally, they may be unsound, and so tissues are not going to heal very well if they're deficient as far as nutrition, protein, et cetera. And so we try to shore them up so they have the best opportunity to heal, and just basically give them the best opportunity to move forward and make progress. Time-wise, it's very different from patient to patient. Healing continues with hyperbaric therapy. We know that healing can continue for 3 to 4 months beyond their last hyperbaric treatment along the way. And the great thing is those treatment results are permanent. Okay, so they are not going to go away once the patient stops the hyperbaric therapy, because we're generating new blood vessels to grow up in the tissue there. But healing can continue for a long period of time, provided we give the body the opportunity to do so.
Right. And as far as somebody finding out about you, because this may not, you were mentioning again when we were out front there, that's most of these, as far as I know, aren't covered by Medicare or other insurances. So how do they go about finding out about this? I mean, obviously, if they come to Leslie's event, they will, but just in general.
A lot of patients are pretty savvy as far as the internet, and so they've done a lot of digging, and so their hyperbaric therapy and use with chronic neurologic disease is not a scarcity. I mean, there's plenty of literature out there, and patients will do their own digging and get their own information, and then they'll try to find somebody who can be a provider to provide what they need. And so the internet's a really helpful thing for them to find us versus coming to Leslie.
But I imagine you got to be careful too. There's probably, do your real research and due diligence and finding the right people there who know what they're doing.
Absolutely right. I mean, there's a big difference. Hyperbaric therapy, there are these soft-sided chambers which only generate 1.3 atmospheres of pressure, and there's a lot of places, and patients can buy those things and use those things in their home themselves. But really, to get really aggressive as far as treatment goes, you really need a hard shell chamber. In other words, a solid steel chamber like what I have in my office. You need to be able to generate at least 1.5 atmospheres of pressure. Between 1.5 atmospheres and 2.25 atmospheres of pressure is generally what we use as far as pressure settings go.
All right. Well, I want to remind folks that they can certainly find out more about this at the Adapt-2-It 17th anniversary, which will be happening August 15th, right at Adapt-2-It from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. I heard you mention wine.
Of course.
Okay. Where is it?
You know me.
Last year she brought in wine. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're glad that you've been around here for that long.
Well, it's a blessing to be here. I love the Laguna Woods folks. So.
Yes. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, very good. Normally she brings in little gadgets for us. That'll be maybe next time.
I brought a person.
You brought a person as a gadget.
I've got a big gadget in my office.
You do.
It weighs 2,000 pounds, so it was a little bit
Couldn't
much to bring here
transport it.
today.
All right, next time. All right. Good to meet you, doctor.
Thank you
Good to
very
see you
much.
as always.
Good to
Take care.
see you.
We'll be
Thank
back.
you.